Some may say side quests are totally optional content, and that is technically true, but games that know how to use their side quests well just feel like more complete and enveloping experiences. This list will take a look at side quests that were broken, unfair, or confusing. Perhaps more time should have been taken on this so-called optional content because it stops many players from completing everything the game had to offer. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 impossible video game side quests that cost you 100%. Number 10. Flying Rats. Grand Theft Auto 4. In every Grand Theft Auto game, there's always that one side quest that you don't want to do. In GTA 4, it's bound to be shooting the 200 pigeons located all over Liberty City, which is the number of hidden packages in Vice City and graffiti tags in San Andreas combined. Even spotting them at all with a guide can be tricky, as GTA 4 is not the most colourful or eye-catching game, so it's easy to miss a grey pigeon in the very grey world. And with a list of 200, you're bound to make a mistake when working your way through it. There's nothing quite like spending hours tracking down collectibles and not knowing which single one you missed, prompting you to do the entire list again, or throw your controller at the screen, whatever happens first. To make this side mission even more time consuming is the fact that firing weapons on the city streets will naturally often incur the wrath of the local PD. Shooting all 200 pigeons gets you the game's best helicopter on the MeTV skyscraper, but it rarely spawns if you use the window washing platform to reach the top, meaning in order to use your helicopter you may need a helicopter to get there, which puts the hours you spent to get the reward into humbling perspective. Number 9. Swabbing Duty. World of Warcraft. With role-playing games, sometimes overcoming a challenge is merely about grinding out some more experience, getting a few more levels on your character and coming back to it stronger. Whilst World of Warcraft has plenty of difficult quests, it's the inability to use this approach that makes swabbing duty the most distressing of all. Rushing around a pirate ship cleaning off stains that almost immediately respawn is so outside of the usual RPG skill set anyway, but the twitchy timing swabbing duty demands means that if your connection isn't strong enough, you don't stand a chance. Players have created keyboard bindings and macros, and even then reportedly spent hours or even days trying to beat this impossible task. Imagine their embarrassment finding out that a particular crewmate, when spoken to, will do it for you for 1 GP. Whilst you should be proud if you manage this yourself, there's no harm in cheating this one so you can move on with your life. Number 8. Old School GHOUL. Fallout New Vegas. Journeying into a new part of the map and getting your head kicked in is an effective way for a game to shuffle the player in a particular direction and teach them not to stray too far too soon. Wandering too close to Black Mountain in Fallout New Vegas will prompt a new quest line, but chances are the super mutants in the area will make you turn tail and run. That's fine, right? After all, there's lots more to do and see, and the beauty of a game like Fallout is the ability to work through the game's content as a player sees fit. Therein, however, lies the problem. Ghoul mechanic RAUL can be found in Black Mountain. Like other companions, RAUL has a couple of quests tied to his story, but when the game first dropped, players had issues launching Old School GHOUL. Having journeyed through the world beforehand, speaking to specific NPCs previously would cause a bug where this quest wouldn't start. RAUL, who it turns out is some kind of prima donna, wouldn't engage in conversation with certain characters if the player had already spoken to them. It was like being punished for exploring the game, and despite a major patch, players still report issues with this questline today. Number 7. Jump Rope Genius and Hero of the Beach. Super Mario Odyssey. In Super Mario Odyssey's Metro Kingdom, players can find a park and play a jump rope game to grab 2 of the game's power moons. What makes Jump Rope Genius's demand for 100 perfectly timed jumps particularly difficult is that the game starts off slow and gets faster over time, causing players to carefully shift speed. One mistake and you're back to that slow start again. Forget the likes of Bowser, players had more trouble with a skipping rope. When the game released, gamers found any way they could to cheat the system after spending so long trying and failing to tick this off their checklist. Things get perhaps even worse at the later Beach Kingdom of the game, where there are 2 power moons associated with the beach volleyball minigame where you have to return the ball 100 times. This is so notoriously hard that the accepted strategy is playing in 2-player mode so that someone can help as Mario's new friend Cappy. With over 800 power moons to collect, it's embarrassing and all too likely that the few short of your 100% run could well be these unreasonably hard minigames. Number 6. No Stone Unturned. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. In Skyrim, picking up your first unusual gem starts off a quest for the Thieves Guild. The Stones of Baron Zaya are important to them as gemstones once a part of a crown. The Dragonborn is then tasked with tracking them all down, with no information to go on beyond that. Skyrim is not exactly a small map, but more than size, it's got lots of places to explore, investigate and inspect. What are the chances you put over 100 hours into the game and manage to find all 24 stones? Pretty low. low, particularly since a few of them appear in areas you can only access a handful of times. The reward isn't even worth it anyway, as it merely increases the chance of finding gemstones, since any players who manage to do this without a guide will have done so by checking out every nook and cranny of the world. You're likely to already be pretty minted. Then again, it may be worth finishing once you've started just to make inventory space, since the stones of Baranzaya don't even stack. Rude. Number 5, the 1000th Lum, Rayman 2, The Great Escape. According to Rayman lore, the fairy-like Lum represent the knowledge of the world, which is why Rayman 2's antagonist, Admiral Razorbeard, eats one. In humorous, almost fourth wall-breaking fashion, players watch the heads-up display of total Lums decrease from 1,000 to 999. Thus, Rayman must now journey through the world to grab the rest. Filling the counter of 999 Lums isn't too bad, but most players didn't realise that there was, in fact, a final 1000th collectible. In the Tomb of the Ancient stage, there is a hidden recess in a wall which takes players to a secret area with a giant stone skull and the 1000th Lum. However, if you happen to be playing the Nintendo 3DS port, getting that secret Lum is an experience that is marred by glitches. The spiderweb that should bounce you into the skull's eye socket does no such thing, so players have to use the tiny spiders crawling on the skull to take damage, hoping that it throws Rayman high enough to reach the ledge. Once inside, the Lum is there for the taking, however the game will soft lock as Rayman touches back down onto the ground. Great! It is possible to grab the Lum, pause and exit the stage to keep it, but not only does that require good timing, but the ability to maintain your cool after struggling to get it in the first place. Number 4, the Nintendo Gallery, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Whilst Wind Waker is a bright, colourful and beautiful affair, it surely has some downright long-winded and frustrating parts. Locating the pieces of the Triforce sunken into the Great Sea is one thing, but that fails in comparison to collecting the figurines. Karlov and his Nintendo Gallery reside on a small island tucked away near Forest Haven. Showing him a full-colour photo taken on Link's deluxe Picto box of one of the game's many enemies or characters means that Karlov can construct an appropriate figurine. That sounds like a nice chilled little collectible, but it's the numbers that make it truly daunting. There's 134 figurines to collect, the Picto box only holds 3 photos at a time, and every statue that Karlov makes takes a whole day, which means frequent use of the Song of Passing to speed up time. If that doesn't sound like enough of a time sink, there are a handful of pictographs that can only be taken at just one point in the game. Missing these ultimately means doing yet another playthrough of the entire quest just to snap a good picture of your missing model. So brutal was this side quest that it was one of a few things heavily tweaked when bringing the game to the Wii U with the HD version, but it's still something most players will avoid. Number 3, Venus Sigil, Final Fantasy X. Getting the ultimate weapons for your party of characters in an RPG should by no means be an easy feat, but many players have a serious bone to pick with Final Fantasy X over its side quest choices. Not merely content with making you find the weapons themselves, FF10 requires crests and sigils to unlock each weapon's potential. Perhaps the worst offender is the Venus Sigil, which unlocks the power of Lulu's Onion Knight doll. Players are required to go to Thunder Plains, the land of perpetual storm, and stand around avoiding being struck by electricity. Looking out for the lightning flash is your prompt to move, and you'll need to be eagle-eyed and quick on the draw. Not only do you need to avoid 200 bolts of lightning, it needs to be consecutive. Eventually, if you're playing a later release, an achievement will pop to let you know that you've done it correctly. However, on the PS2 original, there's no way of knowing without diligently counting every correct dodge, as the game doesn't do it for you. If you lose count, do you start again, or just keep going and hope you do over 200 before you leave? These are the things that keep players up at night, or drive them away from collecting the celestial weapons at all. Number 2, Ranni'S Quest, Elden Ring. Elden Ring is very much about trusting your instincts at times, and Ranni'S Quest is an adventure all on its own in the truest sense. It's easy to get lost along its very vague and very varied list of objectives, locations, and numerous boss fights. Even getting an audience with Ranni is a process of elimination for some players, as there's a handful of reasons why this quest line might not open up, ranging from talking to a certain NPC or performing a ritual of absolution. To start, Ranni requests the Finger Slayer Blade, which is obtained by slaying Radahn and journeying into Nokron. From here begins a long and arduous journey that pits the player against multiple bosses and brings them through many different locations, some of which are notoriously difficult. Getting through Kari and Study Hall means fighting or avoiding the notorious Preceptor Miriam, and a particularly challenging moment finds the player battling the Baleful Shadow and then immediately trudging through everyone's favourite Lake of Rot. And it's not just brawn either, don't forget the pure guesswork of repeatedly talking to a doll of Ranni until she gives up more information. At the very least, this often unfinished questline does have a great reward, allowing players a true treat of an alternate ending for the game. Number 1. The PAC-MAN quest, BATEN KAITOS Origins. Many players of this 2006 GameCube RPG may have an unspoken agreement that this side quest doesn't count, but there's no getting around the fact that most players have not and will never get 100% in BATEN KAITOS Origins. In the world of BATEN KAITOS, a Magnus is an item that can absorb the essence of other things, such as weapons or magic, and this lays the groundwork for the game's card-based battle system. One particular Magnus is quite literally Bandai Namco's Pac-Man, and he's never been hungrier. To complete the Pac-Man quest, players must feed him every other quest-based Magnus in the game. Basically, this side mission, which will take longer than every other quest in the game combined, requires players to use up every major collectible they can obtain. The issue here is you can't afford to overlook a single one, which means making sure to grab the few that are totally missable, cultivate the handful that take 30 real-world hours to grow, and give up the best weapon in the game in order to satisfy Pac-Man's insatiable hunger. BATEN KAITOS Origins has no way of telling you which of the 222 Magnus you've offered up already, so you better have your own checklist handy. Is it worth it in the end? Well, you get permanent critical hits, but after all that, it's probably a game that you're never going to want to touch again anyway. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below, and which other side quests you can think of stopped you from getting 100% in a game. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.